It's nefarious, man. Like, the brain works in fucked up ways.
The mind is one of the most deceiving, manipulative pieces of equipment, flesh, human bodies on earth. I never have trusted my brain.
All of that weight lives in your head, and you are the decision maker.
Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
Hi, it's Ronsley. If this is your first volume, welcome. This is a weekly series where I go inside the mind of an entrepreneur, artist, athlete, academic to decipher what is the psychology of our decisions. As I write this, the coronavirus is losing its mind across the world. Trump is still the president of the United States, and Maria Sharapova just retired from the game of tennis. I also fly to the US for 3 weeks to do a bunch of things, including speaking at a conference in Orlando, working out of the Vayner offices in New York City to get their latest podcast on growth launched, and working out the details for We Are Podcast LAX. There is a lot going on, and it's chock full of nuts. But today, we go inside the mind of a performing artist. They've performed across the world for thousands of people, including shows with millions of audiences. Well, I'll let this report by Fairfax Media do some of the explanation.
Our next guests are a great band from Australia who are here to make their American television debut with their #1 hit, Geronimo. Please welcome Sheppard.
It's a major breakthrough for Brisbane band Sheppard, performing live on The Ellen Show, which has a reach of 3 million viewers per episode on daytime TV.
So say Geronimo, say Geronimo, say Geronimo, say Geronimo.
Geronimo was recorded in Brisbane and was #1 on the Australian charts for 3 weeks earlier this year. The band featuring in Brisbane City Council's Team Brisbane promotion.
Well, to knock off, someone like Pharrell Williams from the top of the charts as a band, it's pretty humbling for us. The fact that we wrote it in this house and it's the first #1 to be recorded in Brisbane ever, that's pretty cool.
So say Geronimo, say Geronimo, say Geronimo.
Sheppard supported Keith Urban on his Light the Fuse tour in June, and they're now trying to crack the US market. This is a good start.
Thank you so much. Go to iTunes to download more music from Sheppard. We'll be back.
So, what is it like to perform every day? To perform your art for people? Today, I'm talking with...
I'm George Sheppard. I am a performer, a singer, a musician, songwriter. I try to look at the world in unique and interesting ways and process that and hopefully express it in a way that people find interesting and that can take something out of. That's literally the base of what I do, I guess.
Okay. What's the backstory, George? How did this start?
We grew up in Papua New Guinea and we went to a school that was quite focused on the arts and, drama and music. And we had a great music teacher named Baruka Tau who used to tour as a session musician with some other big international touring bands. There's a band called Yothu Yindi, which was an indigenous Australian band that was super big in the 80s. And so he toured with Yothu Yindi and met Michael Chugg back in the 80s through touring with this band. And they became good friends, and I think they had a couple of crazy nights together or whatever it was. And cut to 20 years later or whatever it was, we've grown up out of school. 20 years later, we've started this band, and we're still in touch with Baruka, and he's a close friend of ours still. And once he knew that we were doing the band thing, he heard the songs, he liked the music, and he was like, you know what, I'm going to see if I can dust off this relationship with old mate Michael Chugg and see if he'll give you guys a go. And we were like, oh, yeah, see what you can do. We're not holding any hopes. And so he gave him a call, and I think Chugg was like, oh, yeah, good to hear from you, good to hear from you. I'm not interested, type of thing. Okay, yeah. So it was just because, being in a position of power like that, I guess you get so many people just knocking at your door wanting opportunities. Yeah. And you can't say yes to everybody, and it's hard to kind of break through that little initial stage. But to Baruka's credit, he kept on calling him, and he's like, no, listen, I'm not joking around. You got to hear these kids. I think they got something good, and I think their songs are great, and I think I think you could do something with him. And so eventually, I think even just to shut Barooka up, Chuggy said, all right, they can come down, tell them to fly down to Sydney. I'll give them, half an hour in my office. We can have a chat. They can play me some songs and we'll see how we go. That was the first moment of like, oh, okay, we got something here. We got an opportunity.
So George is such a laid back person. We had lunch before this conversation and met maybe 3 or 4 times. We've had breakfast. We've actually even had dinner together. And I wanted to know whether there was anything he just couldn't tolerate, because he sounded like the most laid back person on the planet.
I have no patience for people who just don't have any consideration and or empathy. Like people that just, and I know a lot of them, but people that don't take a second just to think about how somebody else is going to feel or think about their actions or something they're about to say. I believe it's great to be honest, and I think you need to be completely open with people that you care about, but you've got to take that little extra bit of energy and time to consider how your words or actions are going to affect that other person. I really find it annoying that people just do things like you go out on a Saturday night and it's just the valley is full of people who are just selfish motherfuckers who aren't thinking about anybody. And, we all like to have a drink. I'm a big fan of going out with some friends, but I'm always conscious about how I'm acting in public and how I'm being perceived by other people. Because, man, there are some people out there that are just, I don't know how they're existing.
So not courteous, really.
Yeah, just shoving, people along the way, just rudeness. I can't deal with rudeness. There's never an excuse for it. I've never found a justification for rudeness. Yeah, I guess it's that mentality of if we just treat everybody the way that we want to be treated, then we'd be in a great spot, as a planet, instead of just holding these beliefs that you have higher than everyone else's, and you are the god of your existence and anyone else is just a nuisance or a parasite and that you can just walk over. And there's something wrong with people when they and I guess it's in how the way people are raised. I had a very caring mother who was very strict on me about, always saying please and thank you. And whenever I went to somebody's house, I made sure that I helped clean up and, thanks for having me and, all of that stuff, which I guess not everybody has. And the people that don't have it, they just don't have that empathy or consideration for other people and how their actions might be rude or annoying.
Being rude comes from somewhere. Every action that makes us rude has come from a sense of inferiority. We kind of justify our rudeness in certain situations because we feel we've earned the right to be rude in that situation. Maybe it's about something Alfred Adler speaks about it in his work. And I'll let Dr. Sherry Walling from Volume 2 explain.
I think that sort of our conceptualization of imposter syndrome is a kickback from Alfred Adler, who was a contemporary of Freud, and you might know his work, but he talked about these two kind of core strivings in human existence, and that much of what we do is organized out of our sense of inferiority. And so he argued, sort of show up in the world feeling inferior, we've got an older brother, an older sister who does things better than us and they learn faster. And so we're always kind of hedging ourselves against other people. So that's that comparison part of it. And he argued that you strive to sort of attain a level of superiority to alleviate your inferiority, or you get stuck there. You sort of live there. So inferiority or imposter syndrome is part of human nature. We all have it. Absolutely 100%. We have moments where we're like, wow, I'm probably not measuring up here.
According to an article published in the International Journal of Behavioral Science, approximately 70% of people experience imposter feelings at some point in their lives.
So I was super excited to talk with George because of my fascination with performance. Performing for people that have expectations of how you should perform, and performing regularly in front of so many people. Because that kind of pressure isn't fun, I suppose. And sometimes when we have to perform, we choke.
Choking can be looked from a bunch of different angles, because sometimes you do everything right and you still fail, or you still don't succeed the way that you want. And I don't consider that choking. I think choking is when you do something that should be routine and you let the situation or the circumstances change how you would approach things. Are you being you? And I consider choking the moment when you stop being yourself. And that's the funny part. Like, there's nothing wrong with failing. There's something wrong with like not sticking to what got you there, not being yourself, because that's when things get off. Like, it's so easy to throw off one variable.
A lot of the times I use the first part of the volume to help you, my listener, with context of type of person I'm interviewing. It helps with whether the application of any advice is actually relevant to you and your situation. I think for all the good stuff we say yes to, which helps us become better at performing, I suppose the same goes for all the stuff we say no to. George, do you ever say no to things?
I'm always that guy who just says yes. Like, whether it's to my detriment or not, I'm really bad at telling people no. And I'm of the opinion that, you know, being a yes man is a beneficial thing in the sense that you find experiences and meet people and have these like crazy connections happen that have implications later on in your life if you just say yes to stuff. You know, in terms of the band, like there's other members who aren't yes men, so it'll be like a diplomacy where we were like, okay, we'll have a vote and we'll see how it goes. But in my personal life, I don't say no to a lot of things, so I'm finding that hard to answer.
One of the balances that I struggle to keep is the balance between the commercial and the creative. Let me explain. I want to create beautiful and engaging and unique pieces of work, like this show, for example. But sustaining that work is important. And that sustenance comes from the commercial. The commerciality of the work we create allows us to keep that art or that piece of work going. And that isn't always down to the number of listeners equaling advertising money. Talking to George, I wanted to know how he balanced that, because I've heard of so many stories of artists that get ripped off because they don't care about the commercial. In fact, there are schools of thought that forbid us to think of the commercial, which makes us feel icky when we make money from our art.
Well, the great thing is my father is a very good lawyer. Yeah. So our dad actually did a lot of the contracts for us. And when, you know, even when the major label came around, that was just a stroke of luck that we had a dad who is a brilliant lawyer. So he was able to look at all these contracts, and the major label contract in particular was, he said in his 28 years of practicing law, he had never seen a contract that was so consciously complicated and deceptive. He said that there was like clauses that would be like, you know, you'll get this much percentage if it goes over, if you sell over 200,000 copies, your royalties will go from 16 to 18%. But then like 10 pages later, there's another little tiny fine print that says, but if you haven't made this much money back, then it's like, you know, you get less of a percentage. It's like just little loopholes that they try and put in, and it's that same old contract, read everything, read the fine print. But he reckons that the music industry major label contracts are just very, on purpose. Yeah, purposefully trying to screw artists over. Because if you think about it, artists aren't business people. They don't really know how contracts operate, and they don't have any money to pay for lawyers. They're all usually on the bones of their ass, desperate to have any kind of music record deal, and they'll just sign anything. So they've taken advantage of that.
The team we build around us and the potential of what that group of people could achieve is only as good as the weakest or strongest member of that team. So even if George, as an artist, wrote the best songs, it only matters if all the band members perform well in that instance. And even if they perform at their best, their sustainability and their ability to make more art comes from the lawyer that works in their best interest, and so on. So with all this, and with the pressure of performance, does the imposter come out to play? Do you feel any of that, George?
It's very easy to feel like that, because especially for me, when I came from the acting side of it, like I hadn't grown up wanting to be a musician, playing rock guitar in my bedroom from the age of 14. Like I wasn't that guy. So I got into music professionally when I was like 22, 23, and everybody else around me knew way more than me because they'd spent their whole lives, getting prepared for it. And I felt, and I still feel like I'm on the back foot with it all, and I'm trying to quickly catch up and learn as much as I can. So I've got that imposter theory going on, like, oh, I didn't deserve this. I didn't want this from the start, and I only got into it at 22. So why am I now the guy who got to experience all of this amazing success with this song that we wrote? Like there would be people that are amazing songwriters and great musicians that have spent their lives in their bedrooms trying to get this done, and they would be so pissed off at me.
Again, this is key for all of us artists. You can either be pissed off at someone for making their art sustainable, or you can make your art sustainable. And that all comes down to what you consider to be success.
I guess, at the end of the day, there's so many factors that go into whether or not a person's going to be successful at what they do. And getting the craft down pat is just one part of it. You've got to be a master at it, and that is an important part of it, but it's not the only part of it. There's so many other things like who you are as a person and how open and receptive you are to new experiences and situations, and being curious about other people. And so you naturally go out and meet other people, and you start to build your networks, and before you know it, you might have an opportunity from somebody that you met at a random dinner or whatever it is. Speaking from a band's point of view, then there's like the image of the band. Do you guys look like a something that's going to be on stage entertaining people? Like, because you come to Battle of the Bands and you see guys that are great musicians, but they're all wearing different, completely different tops, or like they look like they're from 5 different bands. And that's something else that people take into consideration, like when they're making decisions about whether or not they want to support a band, like label-wise, financially. Branding, yeah, that's a big part of it. Yeah, exactly right. So there's so much that goes into it that you can't just say, oh, I don't deserve this because I got into it late, or I'm not a master of the craft, because there's other ways to kind of get around it.
When we come back, what comes first, the commercial or the creative? And
if I'm being completely honest, I feel like we do, yeah. Because, we've been working at this now for almost 10 years.
Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
The main objective of this audio project is to bring together entrepreneurs and creatives who share similar values so that they can find the courage to put out their authentic voice for the right people to hear, which allows for them to make their impact on the world. Every great movement started with a memorable speech. For access to full-length interviews, go to psychologyoфentrepreneurship.com and click the button.
Before the break, we covered the imposter in performance, success in your craft, and saying yes. With so many performances under their belt, Sheppard are a global phenomenon. But what was it like when the whole thing was relatively new? How did you seize your opportunity, George? Well, wait, let me ask a better question. How did you get your first break?
And so we went down to Sydney, wearing our nicest Sunday bests, combed our hair nice, and walked into his office, and straight away it's like all of this music memorabilia, gold records on the wall, massive picture of Coldplay from their sold out stadium tour they've done and that he promoted. And it was just like this really giddy moment where he's like, oh my God, we're here. We're like in the industry. This guy can make things happen for us. So we went in and Michael brought us into the main staff area. We thought we were just going to be performing in his office, but he brought us straight into the main office area where there was like 30, 35 people just sitting at computers. And he goes, everybody listen up. This is Sheppard. They're a band from Brisbane, and they're going to play us a couple of songs. And we were just like, are you serious right now? You've just thrown us in the deep end. We were like, I was shitting myself at that point. I was like, all right, here we go. We'd done like maybe 3 live performances as a band at that point, so it was still very fresh for us, and we were very new to it all. We picked 5 songs to sing, and we did it acoustically with Jay, our third songwriter. And the 3 of us, it was Amy, myself, and Jason. That was like the band at that point. Yeah. And I guess we got him with the songs and the harmonies. And we didn't actually hear from him for a little while. After we'd done the audition, he was like, all right, well, we'll be in touch. Thanks for coming in and doing that. And coming from the acting background, I know what that means. It's like, don't call us, we'll call you. Yeah. You don't know. You only hear back if you've got the part type of thing.
When someone doesn't call us back, that is the worst. Because after we put out our art, we want the feedback. And because we put so much heart into our performance, we always hope and want to be accepted and the feedback to be positive. We are always hoping for the next compliment, the next push, the next validation, I suppose. Anyway, I digress. Okay, so George, did they call?
And we didn't hear from him for a couple of weeks, or maybe it was like a month and a half, 2 months. So I thought, well, he's not interested, but that was that. Nice try, guys. Let's, what's next? And then we had a show coming up in Brisbane that he then emailed us saying, hey, look, I'm going to be in Brisbane at the same time. Do you mind if I come and check out the show? Yeah, right. And he was like, all right, cool. Yeah, come and check out the full show. This is the band. Yeah. Let's see what you think. So he brought a couple of his like close manager friends, and they all sat in the back, with their hats down, just trying not to distract us the whole time. Yes. And we just had a great night. We had fun performing. We just performed to a crowd of our friends pretty much. And after we got off stage, we went and said hi to him again. And he's like, all right, well, now that I know you can perform, we're in business. And that was it. We've been with Michael Chugg ever since. He sat us down that evening after the bar had closed up. We all sat down and had a meeting. And he said, look, I've got a festival in South Africa that I want to put you on. There's also a festival, my mate's running a festival in London that he said we can do. Then we're going to fly over to America and do this summer stage at Central Park. And then we'll see how we go from there. And I was like, oh my God, this is insane. And so, yeah, it just started building from there really with Michael Chugg. That was the first moment of like, this is exciting. This is like going great.
Sheppard's big hit was Geronimo. Geronimo comes from Sheppard's debut album, 2014's Bombs Away. Okay, so after that, George, what was it like to write songs after Geronimo?
So we spent a lot of time after Geronimo trying to figure out what the hell we did to get this independent Australian song, double platinum in America, gold or platinum in 30 other countries around the world. It was like this mind-boggling thing that had happened to us, and we didn't know how we did it. And we'd spent so much time, like a lot of the reason it took us another 4 years to release album number 2 is because we spent the first year just trying to write another Geronimo. And it took us a little while to realize that's not how you do it. You don't just try and, copy the, you're just like, well, the BPM was 145 or whatever it was. We started in the key of G. The strumming was this quick, like what was the lightning in the bottle that made it possible? But the lightning in the bottle is letting everything else go and just exploring and experimenting and discovering what's exciting for you, and that's the lightning in the bottle.
The lightning in the bottle. What do you do every day that lets you experience your lightning in the bottle? Some days that experience might not come, but on the days that it does, how does that make you feel? Okay then, George, what comes first, the commercial or the creative? Do we first find a way to make something commercially viable, or do we first make the best damn art we can make?
It always starts with the song. Like if you haven't got that right, none of the other stuff matters. So in that sense, you can forget about the money stuff, you can forget about the business stuff, and you always start by focusing on the artist stuff and what feels good to you as the ear, as the musician. What is tickling your fancy, deep down in your soul, like what is making you feel good, because that's what people are subscribed to. People are your fans because they like your taste in music, and that's the most important part of it all. And then I think we went through a big phase where we lost sight of that, and we were just starting to, because once you have success, like commercial success, it changes a lot of things. It changes the chemistry of the band dynamic. It changes like the way you make decisions about the next steps of the band. It just completely flips it on its head. You start to try to figure out how you did it, and you don't really know. Like nobody ever knows. Like you can have formulas and like little tricks that you use, but at the end of the day, every song is completely unique and different, and you don't ever know whether or not it's going to resonate with people. Like if it might resonate with you, it might feel good, but then you release it and it's a flop, or you don't think it's that good, but everyone around you loves it. So, I mean, in me in particular, I'm not a very good judge of what is a good song and what isn't.
Management consulting firm McKinsey & Company estimate that 70% of change programs implemented in businesses fail to achieve their goals, in large part due to employee resistance.
We often forget what got us to a point. We often forget the little things that we've done. And this reminds me of Melissa Ambrosini in the previous volume when she said,
I feel truly proud that I've been able to move through what I've been able to move through. I feel truly proud that I have reprogrammed so much, because I wouldn't have what I have if I didn't. And so I feel proud of myself for continuously doing the work and showing up to my meditation twice a day, every day, getting support from counselors, coaches, therapists, psychotherapists, all the people that have supported me over the past 10 years. I'm so grateful for them.
And that made me want to know what was the process that got George Sheppard into music and to this point.
I guess it was a really gradual process from acting into music. So I went through high school. I did all the plays. I applied for drama school. I got into drama school in Sydney. I went down there and lived for 6 years, and I just sort of like spent those formative years living independently on my own, just studying acting and having a great time with all these other like-minded creative actors. And like that taught me a whole lot about performing on stage, even now with the music. Like I've taken so much out of that acting course that I now get to use on stage and in like music videos and all that fun stuff. So I do get to tickle that acting bug, which is great. But at some point when we were doing like musical theater, there was like a course that we had to do. I just started sitting down at the piano during lunchtime. So everyone would go outside and have lunch, and I'd quickly eat, and then I'd go inside and have like half an hour or so to tinker away at this piano, which sounded amazing in this hall that we were in. And I just had so much fun, like figuring out chords and melodies on the piano. And, Chris Martin from Coldplay, the way he plays piano was really attractive to me at the time. And I just kind of just started doing it and just writing really basic, crappy songs that I hope never see the light of day. And that was like just the inception, the fire, like spark, I guess, for what was to come. But it wasn't until we were back in Brisbane. I was back on holidays, and my younger sister Amy had been doing a TAFE course because she'd always wanted to do music. She knew that that's what she wanted to be. She wanted to be a singer. She wanted to be in a band. And that was her goal. That was her ambition. So she was in a TAFE course, and she was asked as an assignment to write and produce an EP of songs. So like 4 or 5 original songs that she had to produce. And so she'd started writing a couple, and I came back for holidays, and she showed them to me. She played me a couple of tracks. And she's like, do you think anything, could be better? And I was like, oh, what if I sing some harmonies over your bit here? And so I sung the harmony, and our voices it was like this magic penny dropping moment where our voices, for whatever reason, probably because we're siblings and we've got similar vocal cords, but they just blended so well together, and they became kind of like one instrument instead of like 2 people singing independently. It became this one thing, and we remember getting so excited by that, and we had so much fun doing it, and she got a great mark for it. We just kept, getting together and writing music together, and that was the start of Sheppard, really. Like we were a duo, a folk acoustic duo for about 1.5 years, 2 years.
I touched on the team we built around ourselves, and George had something to add to that.
You need people that are experts in the field. Like you can do it all yourself, but it's a hell of a lot easier with some team members. So you want to build your team with people that are really masters of their fields. So you need like publicists to help find your articles and get you written about in the paper, and putting you on morning television shows and that type of thing. And then you have managers like Michael Chugg, who has contacts all around the world from his 50 years of working and traveling and being this incredible badass of the music industry. He's got these contacts, and this experience that we're able to draw upon. And yes, we give him a commission and pay him for that, obviously, but it's worth it. So you just got to try and weigh up whether it's worth giving away a bit of your percentage for these people that are great at what they do.
Before we wrap up this volume, I asked George one final question. Well, it was kind of a 2-part question. Are you doing what you love, and do you feel like you deserve it?
If I'm being completely honest, I feel like we do, yeah. Because, we've been working at this now for almost 10 years. Like since Amy and I wrote that assignment together, that's a long time to be busting your ass on something. And whether or not we got into it at 13 or 21, like we've still put in a lot of effort. And whether or not people notice that or can see it, doesn't really matter. Like we know deep down that we've done that and we've earned it.
Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
Coming up on the Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
It's drive. You've just got to have it in you. If you don't have it, I don't think you're going to succeed as much as an athlete would. And you're in a bubble and nothing can affect you in this bubble, and you go to your perfect spot. And that gets my adrenaline pumping because I'm like, I can actually be a better player because I can see my weaknesses and I can improve them because I'm more mature, because I'm not playing as I did day in, day out, day in, day out.
Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
I interviewed George because he, along with Amy, is the founder and creator of Sheppard, the band. Sheppard is an Australian indie pop band formed in 2009. Their debut studio album, Bombs Away, was released in 2014 and peaked at number 2 on the ARIA Albums chart and was certified gold by the Australian Recording Industry Association, while their second single, Geronimo, spent 3 weeks at number 1 and was certified 5-time platinum. At the ARIA Music Awards of 2013, Sheppard were nominated for Best Independent Release for Let Me Down Easy. And the 2014 ceremony, they were nominated for Album of the Year, Best Group, Best Independent Release, Best Pop Release, Song of the Year, Producer of the Year, and Best Video. In 2018 and 2019, Coming Home was nominated for multiple awards, including Most Played Australian Work and Song of the Year. He is a performer, an artist, and a friend.
Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
This is a Must Amplify production. Special thanks to every guest expert that has appeared on the show. Editing and sound design by Tiago Vega. Voiceovers by Kelly Boniman. Guest research and content by Claire Gould and Corinne Castles. Project managed by Shannon Morrison. Produced and hosted by me, Ronsley Vaz. For more episodes and where to listen, go to mustamplify.com/POE.
Hey, it's Kaylee from Must Amplify. I'm the sound engineer for this volume of Psychology of Entrepreneurship. I'm part of the team that made this production come alive. I work as a part of a global team with our studios based in West End, Brisbane, Australia. If you would like a podcasting checklist, email me at kaylee@amplifyagency.media. That's KAILI@amplifyagency.media. We specialize in finding your voice and making sure it's heard by the right people. If you are considering whether a podcast is a good idea for your business, check out our other show on shouldistartapodcast.com. Cancel your plans for April 30th and May 1st this 2020 because Australia's first podcasting conference, We Are Podcast, is back for its 5th annual event. Hosted in Brisbane, Australia, this year's event will be focusing on 15 tactics to grow and leverage your podcast, your business, and your voice. You can bet that you'll leave feeling connected, inspired, and tactically armed with ways to make 2020 your best year yet. How would past attendees sum up We Are Podcast?
Connection.
Bloody brilliant. Formative. Creative. It's challenging.
I'd say impactful, positive.
Supportive. Inclusive. Completely inspiring and focusing.
Fun, helpful, and generous. It's a generous event. There's a lot of giving.
For more information and to purchase tickets, head over to wearepodcast.com. And that's a wrap.